So, our friendly apex predator, the wolf, is back in the news again. DNR is looking to cut out funding, all kinds of issues going on there that we're going to talk about today. Also, bear season and deer season right around the corner, our favorite time of year. Guys are finishing up the baiting, getting their cameras out there, getting the pictures. So all kinds of things we can talk about on that topic right there. And lastly, talking about splitting up the DNR possibly. What direction do we want to go? How would that get divided up? What would it look like? All kinds of new topics today. Welcome back to another episode of the Sportsman's Voice. Your voice out here talking everything you can imagine in the outdoors today. And it's actually a great time to be alive and to be thinking about what are we doing. Guys are out. I'm starting to see deer targets all over everybody's yard. I own a restaurant, so I'm getting constant calls for, hey, do you have oil that we can use for bear bait right now? Fishing's still hot. Walleye are running all over them. I'm seeing some giant walleye coming out of the bay right now. And it's exciting. This is, if you're an outdoorsman, this is everything you dream about. You got everything coming together. Football season starts, you can deer hunt and then listen to the Packers. So this is a great time of year. It gets me excited, start to get a few cool nights right now. And everything just starts to come together. So one of the first topics we want to talk about, we've talked about quite a bit on this show. I know we had Chris Vaughn from Hunter Nation on last week, and it's one of his favorite topics, but it just keeps popping up. We're somewhere as close to 30 depredation filings that have gone on right now with the DNR. And, if there's 30 that we know about, there's probably 60 to 90 that are legitimately happening because, they'll go in there and if they don't, have a picture of a wolf, they'll blame it on something else. But, there's 30 that are verified. And the DNR now is claiming that they're running out of money to pay. And, this is a problem that this is what happens when we do feel good things, right? It felt good to reintroduce wolves into our environment. Like hey, I think a wolf is a beautiful creature, right? I mean, they're mystic to the Indians. They're beautiful to most of us. So it felt good. Let's introduce wolves into Wisconsin. And then the question came up from hunters is, well, how are we going to handle this? What if they wipe the deer herds out? What if they attack humans? And well, hey, relax. This is government speaking. Relax. We're going to have a quota. There'll only be 300 wolves. We're going to pay you when they kill your animals. So, you're not going to lose anything. And like every typical feel-good government program, especially government-run program, everything that we were promised is slowly degrading, right? We may have 3,000 wolves right now. And once a quota, once a number set, once the wolves are released and they start to reproduce, we can't stop that. That's a natural thing, right? And, there is no natural predator for a wolf other than a hunter. And, we were promised that we would get to hunt these wolves, which that's kind of cool. I would love to go on a wolf hunt. But when you're one out of, 4,000 chances of drawing a tag, you're probably not going to get one. So myself, I've never drawn a tag. Most of us in the state have never drawn a tag. Then you put into play the outside groups, right? So once they got the wolves here, what they never said was, we're going to sue the crap out of you so you can't hunt them. We're never going to let you hunt them if we have anything to say with it. And now we have a whole operation funded by people from New York City, Los Angeles, Hollywood, people all around the world that they look at a video and they love wolves. They believe a lie that the wolves fixed Yellowstone. They're this great equalizer in the environment. They kill only sick animals, which that's a lie. If you've ever, any predator is going to be opportunistic. They're going to get whatever they can get. And the wolves are an apex predator. They have the ability to take down pretty much any animal that God has created. If they can't do it by themselves, they can do it as a group, and they're very efficient at it. I mean, like I said, I think wolves are great. They're cool, but they're like Canada geese. If you go to your local park and you got to step on crap to go for a walk, to get to the beach, or to go walk down your favorite walking path, you suddenly hate geese, you know. And I love to drive by a farmer's field and see 500 in them in a picked cornfield. They're beautiful. They sound great when they're. I live by the river. They sound great, but when I got to step over the garbage they produce out of their rear end to do what I want, I suddenly don't like them. There's no geese on my golf course, none, because they're smart. Once you get rid of one or two, they don't come back. And you know, the same would hold true with wolves. If we hunted wolves, if we had a proper number, we were promised a number of 300. That was a lie. We did have a season, but then we were sued, and the season stopped. And then we went another 3 or 4 years without a season. The numbers keep going up. Then there was an outdoor group that sued, that came in and sued, and said the state constitution says we have to have a wolf hunt. And so we did have a wolf hunt, and I mean, it was crazy. For those of you that remember, like 4 or 5 years ago, they said there's 1,200 wolves. I think they killed somewhere between 300 and 600. No one really knows the number because it happened so fast. I mean, this is supposed to be the smartest creature on God's green earth, right? They are specifically made. I mean, there's people, you would think that this animal, is smarter than a human being. And the reality of it is they are an animal. And so if they're so smart, how do we kill so many wolves in like 3 days, right? It tells you there's something wrong with the numbers. So, coming back to where we are now we can't hunt them. There's no season. You get in trouble if you shoot one. If you do shoot one and you would claim it attacked you, you were put through a more rigorous process than if you'd have killed a human being to prove that you weren't attacked. And now if they kill an animal, we were supposed to get a payment. Those are now possibly going to go away because there's no funding. Like everything else that, we made, all these promises are made, and now nothing's being kept. So we're left with a predator that continues to pump out babies, that continues to grow, that can't be harvested, that has no respect for human beings, no respect for cattle. They don't care if they eat a deer in the woods or your $3,000 heifer. It doesn't matter, So it's a problem. And, how are we going to deal with this? What's the solution to this? I mean, fortunately, we have some people running that have some ideas, some solutions. Tom Tiffany is one of them. And we are hoping to get an upcoming interview with him with some of his ideas. He's grown up in the Northwoods. And even though he's running to represent the entire state of Wisconsin as the governor, being that he's from the Northwoods, he's seen the economic impact it has. And that's a whole nother story, is the economic impact. Where are we going with this long term? And this is not only a Wisconsin problem. If you go and look through multiple states around the country, it's a problem everywhere. So, this is something we're going to, we'll talk about a lot on this program, just because it's an every day, every week, every month issue in the state of Wisconsin. They are moving farther south. When you get into Surrey and Gillett, in Oconto County, which are very, not heavily populated, but they're not very rural areas, and they're causing damage there. That's a problem. Some of Wapaka County, we're seeing stuff. And so, this goes to the bigger question that we teased in the opener, which is, what do we do with the DNR? Are we asking, no one's saying that the DNR is a organization with heartless, bad people, right? There's I think most people that go and work for any government agency do it for the right reason in the beginning, right? We want to help the environment. We want to, work with wildlife. We want to help bring new hunters into the sport. But the problem is with most government agencies is they get too big, and there's never a stop. There's never a slowdown. And the DNR has started to place much more emphasis on local parks. Yesterday, me and my wife were doing a little shopping in Green Bay, and we were looking for a local restaurant. We couldn't remember the name, and we drove around some of Howard, Wisconsin, and one thing I noticed is there's parks everywhere. There's walking parks, beautiful areas, which I'm totally in favor of. But a lot of those are funded through our money as sportsmen, as outdoorsmen. And that's one of the big questions that's coming up. Is it okay to take my hunting money and then use it to put a park in the middle of Green Bay where someone that doesn't hunt, or maybe even is opposed to hunting, is using 90% of the time? That's a question we're going to have to answer. And this is going to be front and center. I think the whole question kind of started out on a political programs because we have a governor's election, but I see third-party groups now starting to pick this up and talk about it. And then with the DNR running low on funding, that also brings up more questions. Okay, if we don't have the funding, like where's the money coming from? How much are sportsmen providing? It's another guest we'd like to have on in the future is Senator Eric Wimberger. He's the senator in the second district of Wisconsin, which is O'Connell, Brown, some of Outagamie, and Marinette. And he's done an audit. We've talked briefly about it before, but he's done an audit. Where's that money going? Is it being spent? If I am a hunter and I buy a hunting license, I would think I would like my money, and I think most of you would agree with me, I want my money to go towards hunting issues. Maybe fishing. Fishing's okay. Trapping's okay. But I don't want it to go towards a walking park in Green Bay. You know, let that, and that I think that was a question that came up in the legislature this last year, if I'm correct, Charlie, that we had, should people pay access to some of these public lands if they're not hunting and fishing, and it's kicked around all over. I don't know. That's a question we could ask, we're looking for some input on this. What's your thoughts on this? Reach out to us and let us know what you think. Because I think it's a legitimate question. As residents, we're told we have to pay, we have to get a license and we have to pay to use public lands and our own private property. Should people that just use walking parks, walking trails, dunes, beaches, what should they pay? Should they pay? Is that just a right as being a resident of Wisconsin? These are legitimate questions I think we have to ask. And you'll always find there's a lot of different opinions on this. But as I look at the money issue, I'm starting to think that maybe we should charge some kind of access because people are taking advantage of something that has nothing to do with what I do. And so we would look to split the DNR. Maybe do we have a hunting, fishing, trapping end of the DNR where they handle the issues that and where all the revenue is generated from those sports? Is it kept in those areas? And then have a separate agency that deals with public access land, trails, walking trails, non-hunting areas. You can't, there's some beautiful parks there in Howard that I just mentioned, but you can't hunt on them. So I think that should be separate. That should be funded separately. That should be run separately. And why would we want a DNR agent to operate one of those parks the same way we'd operate a national forest or state hunting land? So, and then take the other end of that, which would be your regulations, your permitting, all the things that the DNR does. For example, the DNR tests wells. If you're a farmer, golf course owner, they test private property wells and things. Why is that attached? That should be something different. Honestly, I'd like to see that done more by the county than the state. But this is where right now it's just one giant pot. And so, we talk about deer hunting, we talk about wolves, we talk about fish, and then we can go into permitting. Like this is, how is this properly being done? I would contend the more people involved, the less emphasis is placed on certain areas. And that comes to another question, which is if you work in the DNR and you're involved in hunting, fishing, and trapping, shouldn't you be someone that's knowledgeable in those areas, have participated in those areas? This is another thing we're seeing across the country, which is agencies now opening up through the DEI programs this to people that are non-hunters, actual anti-hunters, people that are on programs that are parts of third-party groups or PACs that are totally against hunting, but now those people are involved in our DNR agencies. I would have no trouble if they worked in taking care of parks and permitting outside of hunting and fishing, but I would have a problem with them being involved in any regulation and anything that happens, inside of the areas that I like, because I want people that understand what I want. So I think it's something that we're really going to have to, I think in the next 3 months, as the governor's election heats up, this is going to be a massive discussion, and I think it's really important that as outdoorsmen, you start asking hard questions. And I do want to announce something what's going on next week, because this kind of ties into this. I've been working separately on another project with Hunter Nation, and we do events geared around the outdoor issues. And what we do is we invite politicians in, and we basically ask those politicians to do less talking and more listening, because politicians love to talk. They love to come in and give you their 5-minute speech and take a question or two. In this format, we have what's called a sportsman. What do we call it? A sportsman town hall. And the idea is that we bring in your governor. We're right now we're in a governor's election. Your governor candidates. We bring in congressional candidates. We bring in your legislators, your senators. This one specifically is going to be up in Forest County at the Hiles Trailhead Pub next Thursday at 6 p.m. And the idea is for hunters, fishermen, outdoorsmen to come in and tell these people running for office, or some of them are elected like that and are not running for office right now. If you're a senator, you're in the middle of your term, but come in and tell them what you want. Tell them what you're angry about. Tell them what you want to see changed. And I'll tell you, we've done a few of these already, and it's been really cool because I'll tell you, the first one I did when we were going through the topics, we obviously had wolves at the top of the list, CWD, access. There was a bunch of things. And I was told by several congressmen not congressmen, state legislators and senators, that baiting was not an issue. That was a finished issue, that baiting was done. And I can tell you that 90% of an hour and a half discussion was around baiting and what you're allowed to do on your own private property. So these events are great because this is where you get to voice your opinion. You don't have to live in Forest County. You don't have to be even voting for any of these individuals, but the idea is for them to come in and listen. And for a better word, this is a chance for you to have your bitch session right up front. Put it out there. We ask people to be respectful, but we ask them to be honest on what they want. And, it's funny. We asked a few questions about what's legal or not in the last one. And I even had some individuals that work in law enforcement that sheepishly raised their hand and said, yes, I've baited deer knowing it's illegal. People are being honest. But, I think it's important. I think if we have a law that 60 or 70% of the public is breaking willfully, maybe we need our politicians to sit down and say that law isn't so good. If you know how like a local police department, for example, there's a road by me that is a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. Everybody that drives down that road goes 45. They're not flying, but 25 seems ridiculous because there's not a house in that stretch, right? So what did our local police department do? They stuck a thing out there that tells you you're going too fast or too slow, and it actually kept track of how many people were speeding. And at one point they said, okay, 80% of the people that went through here were speeding. Even when we stuck an officer out there once a day, it didn't slow anybody down, right? So what did they do? They changed the speed limit to 45 because that was what people wanted to go and it wasn't endangering anybody. So that's one of the great things about doing these type of events is that we want these politicians to say like, hey, this isn't a fringe. This isn't a fringe event. This isn't a fringe thing. Everybody is in favor of this and they're willing to break the law to do something, no matter what it is, then maybe we should go back and look at it really hard and say, okay, maybe what we thought was good isn't so good. So we hope to see you there next Thursday. Once again, 6 o'clock at the Trailhead Pub in Hiles, Wisconsin. It's right on 32. It's adjacent to the Little Pine Hotel there. And Tom Tiffany is confirmed, Lieutenant Governor candidate Will Martin, Michael Alfonso, Jeff Mersall. I'm waiting on an answer from Mary Fitzkowski. So this will be a chance to tell people that could actually make a difference in what you want. One, they're there to listen, but they're the ones that are going to go back and look at these laws this fall when they're back in session. So I hope to see you out there. We'll have another one coming up. I'll talk more about it in the upcoming episodes, but we'll be doing one in the Manitowoc Rodeo Complex in September 12th. And I'll talk more about that on some of the next episodes, but that'll be our next one in line after this. And we're going to be doing them all over northern Wisconsin, really, the 3rd district, the 7th district, the 8th district, and giving you a chance to tell politicians, because I don't know how many of you have attended the conservation hearings, but if you have, you're probably disappointed like I was. They might bring a game warden in and they bring in some individuals from the state and they act like they care, and then you leave and then nothing happens, And the reality of it is those individuals are only going to do what their boss tells them to do. They're going to listen to you. They might write some notes on paper so it looks like they're doing something, and then they go back and they probably file them in the nearest trash can in their office and talk about how stupid people are. Let's be honest. That's what happens. We know it does. We don't need a camera to be there. We don't need to send Nick Shirley out to do an investigation. It's happening. Trust me. So this is guys that we have to go back to what do people want? Politicians want to get elected, and you know how they get elected? When they make people happy. So if they're not doing what we want, we tell them respectfully, and then we give them their vote and we give them their support if they do it. So the idea is to not just do this through election season. We're going to continue these as we go forward because, the name of the show is A Sportsman's Voice, and we have to give sportsmen a voice. That's what we have to do. And I feel like in sitting in bars and talking to people, on a consistent basis, whether it's at someone's backyard party, I constantly hear that people say it doesn't matter what I want or what I think or what I say. It never changes. And we have to change that. We have to find a way to get through. And I do think for the first time since I've lived in Wisconsin for the last 14 years, I'm seeing a real change in the attitude of some of our politicians, that have come to realize that the hunters are a large core part of our society. And they're also a growing coalition right now. I mean, youth want to hunt. They want to fish. They want to get out in the outdoors. And they're starting to listen. So let's keep this going. I hope to see you guys out there. And whether you live in Oconto County or Forest County or Florence County or north of there, you got Oneida. Come on out. It's a short drive and check us out. Well, check out what we're doing. So let's transition a little bit into some of the exciting stuff, right? Bear season's around the corner. What are you guys doing? I want to hear from you. Like, what are you using for bait? What are you seeing? Email us some pictures. We'll put out all those. I'll give you all those email numbers and everything at the end of the show on today. But email us pictures. Give us some comments. Give us some, we're on Facebook. Like and share us. And we're looking for some input on what you're seeing out there. I believe this year, the season opens September 9th. You can bait. I believe certain zones the dogs get out first. I'm not sure exactly which zone. We're going to bring somebody in to talk about that in the next couple of weeks. But I'm hearing great reports. I had one guy around the corner told me he had 9 bears coming to one bait. That's awesome. The bear numbers are solid. I personally am not bear hunted myself. I see a lot of them when I'm out up north. It's something I'd like to check out. I just, being in the golf business, like baiting in, June, July, and August is not my thing. I can't do it. I'm really not fond of the bugs in the woods as much right now. It's easier to put a camera out and then get a picture of something, but to go carrying bait out 3 times a week, I don't have the time. I do have a daughter that's really wants to kill a bear. She's just gung-ho. So it is something that I'll be doing in the future. And maybe when we get her out there, we'll get some video on that. And because I can tell you, if you've ever sat in a tree and you've had a bear walk by you, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's just neat. We've had some on the golf course up north, and you see them on the side of the road once in a while. And so it's definitely an exciting time. And I can tell you that, all over the state, people are getting ready for it. We'll definitely be talking more about this. And then the big one for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you, is the opener deer season. The deer right now, I think August 15th is about the time when the velvet starts to stop growing. The horns start to harden. And, most of what you see now is probably 95% ready, what it's going to be. If your deer's not what it's going to be at this point, it's probably not going to get any bigger, But we got the opener coming up. There's targets everywhere. I'm starting to see everybody's got a target in their backyard. And I'm just curious, how many guys get out there and hunt early season? I know there's a lot that hate the heat. I can tell you, being a golf course owner, this is kind of funny because my business on Saturday and Sunday, once the season begins, is based on the weather. If it's 75 and warm, the golf course is busy. If the first week of the season starts off and the nighttime temperatures are 35, 40, I don't see certain golfers ever again. So it's funny. I can tell who's hunting early and who doesn't just by when I don't see them again until, they come out with their wife on a Friday night or something for a fish fry. They just disappear. And I get it. It's cool. And I'm jealous because I'm still busy cutting grass. I very rarely get to hunt early season. And I'm not fond of swatting mosquitoes either. I don't know about you guys. I don't know about you, Charlie. I don't like swatting at mosquitoes. So I usually wait. It is kind of cool though. I will tell you, if you are fortunate enough to own a piece of property, you have a deer that's coming in, feeding in a bean field or something close by, there is no better time to get a chance to kill that deer than that first week. It's special. I mean, you got him coming on a pattern. You can literally almost set your clock. If he's coming at 6:00, it's getting dark at 8, and you're there at 5:30, you're going to kill that deer. So it's a very unique time. It's probably, other than the rut, it's probably the best time to get a chance at a buck. That it's almost not fair. So yeah, there's definitely no better time to kill a deer than in early September, other than the rut. And like I said, it's a fun time. And the DNR now has their report out, so we'll just kind of go through some of what they're saying. I mean, obviously, one of the key things early season is the acorns. It looks like there's going to be a great acorn harvest this year. And that's if you should be lucky enough to have a white oak in your backyard or a piece of woods next to you or a national forest spot. It looks like the white oaks are really going to be prolific this year. So that's a real key spot. It's like hunting over bait. You find a good tree with white oaks, they will walk past every other acorn to get to it. And the DNR basically says right now that it's an excellent harvest. We've had the right amount of rain, whether it's too much or too little. I don't know what produces the best acorns, but there's really good numbers on that. I can tell you from what I'm seeing on my cameras up north, and the DNR is reporting that the winter kill was not bad this last year. The fawn recruitment's excellent. Whether it's by my house, I showed some pictures last week, or up north, I'm seeing every doe with a fawn or two. That's lining up. I would have to say the DNR's pretty accurate on that at the moment. I mean, you could sit in a bar and get a different opinion depending on who's hunting where and what they think. I got to be honest. We could spend a whole episode on why you are or are not seeing deer, but just sheer numbers. I got a guy that comes in and delivers product once a week for me at the restaurant. And he says he's never seen so many deer in the mornings and the evenings. And he's traveling. He leaves Merle at 3:00 in the morning. And he's like, the numbers on the side of the road up north are off the charts. And he lives in the Wasaki area. So he's very in tune with what's going up there. He's also a bear hunter. He's, same thing. He sent good numbers of bear. So I would have to say the DNR is pretty accurate on this at the moment. Recruitment's good, which if there was a good recruitment with fawns, that also means that our buck harvests the buck numbers stayed up through the winter. Cause that's always my biggest fear as a guy that hunts up north is that we're going to have a harsh winter. We're going to see a huge kill off. And I immediately coming out of the spring had pictures of bucks, and then the DNR report backs that up. Now we'll see what happens. I mean, remember what you see in September and October and what you see rifle season are two different things. There's a big difference. The leaves are off the trees and the deer start heading for, more secure areas. But right now, I would say the deer numbers are great. And the DNR is saying the same thing. That's exciting. Also, I was up north over the weekend, and I couldn't believe how many grouse I saw on the side of the road. They are everywhere this year. So that's kind of cool. It wasn't something I really planned on talking about, but I was just thinking about that if the grouse numbers are great, the deer numbers are great. I mean, it's overall, we have a pretty healthy herd going into this year. So, get out there and enjoy that. Once again, send us your pictures. We want to see your big bucks, any cool pictures that you have. We'll put them up on the Facebook page and show people what you have. We'd definitely like to see it. So, let's get ready for an awesome year. I'm very excited with all that we're doing. I hope we're bringing you guys some good information going forward, and educating you a little bit on that in between with the outdoors and the political end of it, because this all ties together. And I really truly believe that if we can get the right people elected this fall, and we're out there, we have a good sport. It's fairly healthy at the moment. I mean, other than the wolf issue and some internal DNR issues, I think we can see Wisconsin get better and better, because my overall concern is that we're stable, on a financial end where people want to come to this state, where there's positive things happening, positive information coming out of Wisconsin. I just heard, I was listening to another podcast this morning. It was talking about Iowa, and it was interesting because I've never heard someone mention this before. And I started to do a little bit of research. The question was, has Iowa peaked? Has Iowa and Missouri peaked? And they are now entering, they're maybe 7 or 8 years behind us. They are now entering our phase where overregulation and the DNR issues, or not DNR, I'm sorry, CWD issues are popping up. Missouri's talking about wiping out a quarter of their herd. They've made out-of-state hunting more expensive. They're dealing with things that we were dealing with 7, 8 years ago. And does that, so the first question was, have they peaked a little bit? And then what states are coming back into favor? And Wisconsin was one of those states where maybe it's just because we've had a couple of easy winners That's helped us. I mean, this state, and then this is why I'm so passionate about living here. This state produces big bucks by accident. We really do. I mean, if we had points restrictions on one side, there's a million things we could talk about, right? If we did, $1 or points restriction, I'm not saying I'm in favor of that, but these are things that other states have done. We would be head and shoulders above everybody else immediately if that was our goal, if that's what we want. I don't know. That's some stuff we're going to talk about in our next upcoming episodes is, what do you actually want? What is the average guy, what is he really looking for? Are you looking for big bucks? Are you looking for lots of deer? Do you want to see 30 does every sit? But if you're looking for big bucks, this state produces them by accident. And we may be at a point where with the right politicians and a little bit of structure management in the DNR, where Wisconsin could be right back on the top of the pile in quality in every area. I mean, it's one of the beauties of living here is that we just have a state that has the national resources, the forests, the rivers, the water. I mean, so that's the whole purpose of the show is just to talk about these issues and bring up some questions, and some of the things that I really want to start to delve into as we go forward is the bow issue, crossbows versus regular bows versus, traditional bows, compounds, traditional crossbows, those issues there. And I'm curious as to your thoughts on that. What do you want to see? Do you want to see separate seasons, conjoined seasons? And then we go into muzzle loader. If you live I grew up hunting in Pennsylvania a little bit, and there you can only use a traditional muzzle loader late season. And if you've never used a flintlock, that's a whole new experience. Like, is that something we'd want to do here late season? I don't know. It's a tool. If you've never fired one, you got to try it one time. It's pretty much the coolest thing in the world. You will wonder how anybody ever killed anybody in the Revolutionary War if you've ever fired a flintlock, because there's nothing like that feeling when you pull the trigger and then there's a fire in front of your face, and then like a second later the gun goes off. And I've never killed a deer. I've missed every deer I ever shot at. And half the time I'm running through the wood, I'd go through we'd be up in the mountains and I'd tip my flintlock sideways and the flint would fall out and then nothing happened. And I'm like, God, I got to give those guys a whole lot of props because they had to live with that gun. Like you ate, everything. I mean, that was how you got your food. So, is that something we'd want here in Wisconsin? It's kind of cool. These are more questions going forward. What are we looking for? And so we'll be delving into more of this on the show. We're excited to have you guys here. You're probably starting to see some of our podcasts coming up online now. And it's fun to see that. So we've discussed a lot of issues today, whether it was the Bears, the DNR. There's just so many things. And like I said in the beginning of the show, there's a whole lot of, I think it just gets more exciting because we're going into all these seasons that we love. And, we're looking to do some different, maybe we might do some offshoots of the podcast and some, I have a daughter that's in the culinary and we'll bring in some chefs and start talking about some different things as a side of what we do here and some different information, dog training. I mean, there's a million things we could go into. And we're excited to be able to bring some different information to you. I'm also looking around, and one thing I've come to realize is that in Wisconsin, we have some tremendous innovators. We have people that make a lot of the cool products that you see popping up at Cabela's or online are made right here, actually in northeastern Wisconsin. It's crazy how many manufacturers come out of the state. And, that'll be another thing that we put up on our website, maybe some interviews with some of these guys, how they designed it, what the purpose of it is, and give you some cool new products. Because, I mean, one of the awesome things about our sport is for every idea, there's a new innovation, and I mean, how many times I've had one of my buddies say, why didn't I think of that? I remember I had a buddy who was so pissed off when we got scentless gum, and people were running. I mean, I don't know if it works or not. It tasted terrible. I was like, I think we bought $30 worth of scentless gum and I think we chewed like 3 tablets and threw the rest away. But my buddy's like, why didn't I think of that? It's the stupidest idea, but there's always something cool, and, I mean, technology makes our, whether you love it or not, it's there, right? And the cameras are getting better and the blinds are getting better. I mean, now you got these see-through blinds. It's crazy. So it's just, there's so many areas we're going to go into. And wrapping this up, I'd like to kind of give you some ways to reach out to us. Our website is the Wisconsin Outdoor Alliance. Check us out. We have everything, political updates on there, outdoor updates. Our podcast is on there. And check us out. It's a great place to kind of see what's going on in Wisconsin. Anything that comes out, we try to get it on there. And if you think there's something we need to put on there, please contact us. So if you're looking to figure out how to reach us, please check us out. Like I said, on Facebook, we're on Spotify, we're on YouTube, and then you can email us with any pictures, any questions, any suggestions of things we want to see on the show at capital W, lowercase I, outdooralliance@gmail.com. Once again, thanks for joining us today. This is Ken Sikora coming to you from the Sportsman's Voice, keeping you on target.